Hi,
Hello,
nice to
very
see
nice
you
to see
again.
you.
You as
Likewise.
well.
Now we're
Um,
finally in the middle of the harvest, actually almost at the end of the end.
yeah, is today the last day?
It is indeed for the
Okay,
Cabernet Franc.
okay. So yes, for everyone tuning in here, usually we do our lives at 1 p.m. New York time on Thursday, but Mother Nature does not wait for anyone. So we had to move the live to today, the last day of harvest at Chateau Angelus. And we are joined today by owner of Chateau Angelus, Stéphanie de Boüard-Rivoal, which we did a live a few months back together.
Yeah.
Um, and we had this great opportunity to follow you guys through the winemaking process. So, for all of you guys tuning in today, this is again a little bit of a different version of the live. We're going to be essentially following the harvest, which I think will be really insightful. So, if you'd like to start off by telling us a few words maybe about Chateau Angelus, and
Sure,
then jumping right into the harvest.
absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm very happy to be back with you online. Sadly, we cannot be together, but I'm delighted to see that we're keeping in touch. A few months ago, it was about the 2019 vintage that we were tasting en primeur. Now it's the 2020 that we're harvesting. So it's great to touch base, even if we're not able to welcome you at the chateau or to meet you in the States. For those of you who don't know us, who haven't had the chance to come here and who I haven't met, so I'm the eighth generation of the Devoir de la Forêt family. I'm the president of the company, and I took over in 2012 after that my father and my uncle offered me the occasion to reach the management. I grew up in Saint-Emilion. I was born in Bordeaux, and I spent all of my childhood at Angelus. So now it's my turn to write new chapters of Angelus history, and it's wonderful to have this chance. I have a lot on my shoulders as well. I'm very confident now. You can see the beautiful weather behind. We've had a wonderful summer to start with. We had a spring that was rainy and a bit worrying at first, but we managed. We really managed to control the mildew pressure. So it was quite scary, but in the end, we were really out of danger. And the rain that we had that was a bit scary really helped us during the summer because it was a hot summer and fairly dry summer. So it was good that the vines really didn't get stressed. There was no water stress thanks to the water that was in the soils, in the clay. And that was really, really important and useful. We had green vines all across the summer. So now, if you want, I'm going to show you, because I can see we have some tractors, and it's important for you to see exactly what we are having next to me. I'm going to show you the grapes that are going to be sorted on the sorting table in the next minute. So it's the Cabernet Franc that we started to harvest at the beginning of the week, and we're going to finish, as mentioned, in a few hours. So it's really the end that you're going to see. And we started for the Merlot the 15th of September, and we ended on the 23rd of September. So we had this break. We had a break between the Merlot and the Cabernet Franc, and I think it was a very good decision to wait until the Cabernet Franc was fully ripe. It is the optimal ripeness that we have, and I'm delighted to see that we have this optimum maturity for the ripeness for the Cabernet Franc that, as you know, is gets ripe later than the Merlot, so it's more sensitive and fragile to the climatic conditions. So hopefully, as you can see, we're harvesting in beautiful, beautiful conditions. We do not have any, I'd say, jammy or overripe grapes, not at all. They are perfectly ripe, and it's a pleasure. We had a 2020 year, and it's not finished, that has been very difficult in unprecedented conditions. So we're so happy so far to have 2020 that allows us to produce, to still continue to produce wine and a beautiful wine. And the name of the vineyard, the vintage, because each vintage bears a name at Angelus, is Sublime.
Okay. That sounds very promising.
Shall we move to the grapes tasting
Yeah,
table? Yes.
yes, let's take a look.
Okay.
So, for those of you tuning in, we are about to see the harvest essentially from A to Z.
So here we can see the cases with the grapes. You can see how beautiful these grapes are. They're very healthy.
Cabernet
That was
Franc.
very, very important, the Cabernet Franc, yes. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Then these people are taking all the grapes and they are installing the grapes on the first sorting table that you can see here, where they're going to take out the leaves, the grapes that are not 100% right. If there are some grapes that are not absolutely perfect, they are taken out in the bin. Then here we have this conveyor that is going to drop the grapes in the destemmer. So the destemmer is really going to separate the grapes from the stem. And then we have another table that is almost, it's a sorting table that is shaking, where the grapes, with still a few stems here, they are going to fall below underneath, and they're going to be taken out. Here you can see as well this
Okay.
is going to retain down. We're going to have all these retain on the side. So we have also a blowing machine that helps to get these things out, really.
Okay,
All
so
the
it's
stems.
by air.
Yes, by air. Then you have another conveyor, the following conveyor, that leads to the final sorting table. So in total, it's almost three. The first one you saw, the second that is an intermediary, and the third one, the final one, that's here, where we really finish the work. We do not want to see any stem. Can you see my hand? No. Here? Yeah.
Yep.
We don't want to see this little stem. So that's what these people are doing at the moment.
Okay.
And in the end, we have it looks like a caviar belt with only nice round and black dots. And these grapes then are going to the last conveyor, and then they're going to be going directly to the vat, into the vat.
Okay, and then, so you said then they're dumped directly into the various vats.
Yes.
Okay. And in terms of the vats, are you using all stainless steel? Is it concrete?
Well, as you can see behind, we are using wooden vats that you can see in my back. We also have, you can see in the screen, stainless steel vats, and we have just here, let me show you the concrete vats. So we have the three different types of vats that we did very interesting for the different grape variety. Keeping in mind that the Cabernet Franc will be really used, vinified in the concrete vats, because the Cabernet Franc really needs to have stability, and the vat is the best insulation material that we have, isolation material. That's very important that all the Cabernet Franc go into the concrete vats.
Okay, because I'm assuming the temperature change happens much more slowly in concrete versus stainless steel, which you
Yes,
can manipulate
yeah,
much more easily.
yeah. It's the stability is there for the concrete, and that's very important. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Because the Cabernet Franc is really it's a wonderful grape variety. You know, at Angelus we have more than 45% of Cabernet Franc. It's a grape variety that we love here, but that is capricious, that is delicate, and that is fragile, that's very sensitive. So we need to protect it. And I'm talking about the concrete vats, but then once the wine is in the barrel cellar, we, since 2018, we've introduced foudre, this big cask where we make age, let's say 40%, 40 to 50% of our Cabernet Franc, the eldest Cabernet Franc. And that's very interesting because it limits the wood impact and also the dissolved oxygen impact. And that's very important for the Cabernet Franc because the Cabernet Franc doesn't bear too much oxygen and doesn't like to have too much too much wood. Sorry, so that's important. Important that we try with the Cabernet Franc to be extremely delicate.
Okay. And so now you're at the point where the grapes are going into the various tanks. What are going to be the next steps in the following weeks and up until the aging process? What will be the next steps that you take at Angelus?
Well, for the moment, we are working in the. I'm moving a little bit so we can have a bit more silence.
Okay.
So for the moment, it's really the vinification process, and the vinification process is going to last several weeks. So the vinification process is going to last several weeks, and in about 3 weeks' time, we will start taking out the grapes. I mean the juices from the vat into the barrel cellar, and that's where. Sorry, I'm trying to find my position. From that moment, then we will start to have our malolactic fermentation because we do have our alcoholic fermentation in the vat cellar where I was just before, and then the malolactic fermentation will take place in the barrels directly, where the wine is going to age for approximately 22 months.
Okay. And in terms of the blend, at what point are you guys going to be deciding on the blend for Angelus and for the second wine as well, Carillon?
So the Carillon Angelus is a very distinct, very separate subject. It's 25 hectares. Carillon Angelus represents 25 hectares, and it's really a wine that has its own identity, that is produced out of different terroirs of Saint-Emilion appellation. So it really changed in terms of style, that it used to be in the past the second wine known as a wine per default that was coming out from grapes that were used just 1 second. Grapes that were used that we were not keeping for the first wine, that were not judged sufficient in terms of quality, and so we were producing the Carillon Angelus out of these grapes. Now, since I'd say 2014, we really changed in terms of philosophy, and the wine now is produced from different plots of vines that are located across the appellation. So that changes, and we have a dedicated cellar that is located 10 minutes away for Carillon Angelus, for number 3 of Angelus, and that's from 2018 vintage that we've been able to vinify our Carillon. It's a bit less than 6,000 square meters cellar that is really revolutionary and very modern. So nothing to do with Chateau Angelus architecture that you can see just
Yes.
behind. But we like in our family, to be traditional, but also to be creative and to balance the innovation and the modernity and the tradition. Since, we also work here at Chateau Angelus with the horses, and we also work with tractors and also with a robot. I don't know if we touched base on that last time, but we have an electrical robot here as well as horses or tractors. So that's very
Really the
very
whole
very
range.
interesting. Yeah, and in terms of grape variety, it's too early, of course, to say what the blend is going to be for Angelus and for Carillon, but it is roughly around six. Usually, I'd say commonly 60% Merlot and 40% Cabernet Franc. Now it can vary, of course. In 14 we have 50-50, so that can really change. And for Carillon Angelus, it is roughly around 80% Merlot. But as I said, now it's too early to say. We'll need to taste during the vinification and during the aging process as well.
Okay, so then the wines are aged separately and then blended before bottling, or at what stage?
Absolutely. They are really blended at the last moment. So we keep them separate. All the plots are identified and kept separate. And that's true in the barrel cellar, but also in the vat cellar. And that's the great thing we can do in the new Carillon cellar, is that all the plots are vinified, kept separately, which allow us to be even more precise in terms of work, in terms of extractions, to be more precise, in terms of temperatures as well, where we work on the different vines. We try with hot temperatures like we've had to cool down the temperature, and when possible, to keep the juices at a cool temperature, So then we had a maceration, a pre-fermentation maceration at low temperatures. And that's very interesting. So we can extract beautiful things, particularly the color, very gently, very smoothly, not in an alcoholic environment. So that's important. That's what we're trying to do. And this vintage 2020, as I said, started with rain, and then we had a hot summer. In the end, I think it's a wonderful vintage where we have high degrees of alcohol, but not extremely high. It won't be as high as 2010 that already has, it's more than 15 degrees of alcohol, but it's very well integrated. So it's not a problem as per se. It depends on the integration, the harmony really of the wine itself. But for 2020, I'd say that it will not excess 14.5 degrees. That's my estimation. And we have pH that are they are very moderate, which means that we'll have, nice acidity, and we'll have another vintage that will age, not saying forever, but for a long time.
Okay. And so I know that a lot of people don't love this question, and every vintage is different in its own right. But if you had to kind of compare or take bits and pieces from other vintages, it really helps people to kind of have a clearer idea on 2020. What would you take from which vintages?
I would take a combination of 1947 and 2010.
Okay, tell us a little bit. 2010, we all know to be a fantastic vintage in Bordeaux. Definitely structured wines and wines with long aging potential. Tell us a little bit about 1947, because a lot of us haven't had a chance to explore that vintage too much.
Well, and myself, I have a very short experience. I've tasted it 2 times in my life, but already it's a chance. It's a wine that has a high proportion of Cabernet Franc. That this is something that is really noticeable, and had kind of the similar climatic conditions during the summer. It was a very hot summer, and there was quite a rainy spring. So that's quite similar in terms of seasonal, I'd say, conditions. And in terms of tasting, of course, it's very difficult, because I'd say that when you taste the wine, that is 70 years old. It's very difficult to compare, but in the end, it's extremely fine and delicate tannins, and a lot of freshness. And I'm really confident in 2020 that we will have this freshness thanks to the Cabernet Franc and thanks to also the acidity that I described. Now, it's very early. I will be very happy that you asked me this question in the few weeks, months to answer. Perhaps I will have more time and more distance, to analyze it.
Of course, of course. It's just the first impressions are always
Exactly.
interesting to hear.
Yeah.
Um, and I think so. Everyone tuning in, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. The last question I have for you is, of course, work in the vineyards never stops. So what is happening now in the vineyards, let's say from now until the end of the year? What is the work that you guys are doing?
Well, we do what we call in French the racotage. We are going to work really on things that to help the vineyard to keep its strength, its vigor. So it's really at this time that we're going to work. And then later during the winter, we'll work on the pruning as well. So, all the missing, I'd say missing vines or everything that needs to be fixed in a way is going to be done. And also in terms of soil, opening the soil, closing the soil, aerating the soils, all of that is going to be done in the next month, plus the pruning.
Okay. Okay, fantastic. Is there any last words you'd like to leave us with for Chateau Angelus or the 2020 vintage?
Well, I will have so many things to say. The 2020 vintage, is outstanding. It's very satisfying, and I'm so happy to know that we manage in difficult conditions, because you see me without my mask, but everyone wears a mask. We have to get organized in the vines to make sure that people are not facing one another to pick. So the conditions are really difficult, to be honest. But I'm so happy to see the contrast between the difficulty of this crisis, this sanitary crisis, and the quality of the vintage that we're going to have. So that's one thing.
One good thing in 2020.
Exactly. The second is that I told you I'm the 8th generation. I was so happy to see my children, the 9th generation, picking the grapes last week, the Merlot, and yesterday drinking their Cabernet Franc juice. So at 3 and 4, they are so excited, and for me it's wonderful, and for our family to know that there's still the passion on the following generations. So that's great. And not talking about 2020, 2018 is going to be available soon, and it was the vintage called the Phoenix. And the Phoenix was a vintage where it was the weather conditions were tremendously difficult to start with. We called it the Phoenix because it was reborn out of the ashes. And in the next weeks, you will discover something special as a remember, to remind us what 2018 has been and what we faced.
Okay, yes. For everyone tuning in, we will be bringing in the 18 as well as the 20, a few years from now. I did get one question, if you could. I know it's a very large topic, and I'm sure you could talk about it for quite some time, but someone asked the question, how is climate change affecting the way that you guys are working in the vineyards?
A lot. We need to adapt, and climate change gathers so many different things. It's not only the global warming. We have the hailstorm. We have a lot of rain. It can be drought, can be heat, it can be frost, and we have to adapt. So I'm convinced that the nature always gets, the last word, and we cannot we cannot really fight against the nature. However, we can try to limit the effects that we sometimes only bear, and that's talking about frost. We have some wind turbines in the vines, and we have big candles that we lit up. I mean, all the team in the vines is ready at night to lit up these candles and have these wind turbines that help the air to move out, to avoid having these cold air that is stagnating. That's one thing. And we use them last year. In the past years, we've had to use them really. We also, to fight against the hail, we have some balloons that are blown with helium, and that when we have an alert that when a storm is coming, we need to launch one balloon. It's going to be kind of swollen by a cloud, by the cloud, and the salt, the crystal, salt crystal that are in the balloon are going to be spread out and are going to avoid the formation of hail. So instead of having hail, we have rain instead.
So it breaks up the cloud, essentially.
Yes. Yeah. But it's not a canon, it's different. So it's like, putting some salt on a snowed, on the snow, on the road.
Yeah.
So that's the same idea, is really to make it melt. And talking about the drought and the heat, we are lucky because we have clay mostly at Angelus and concrete as well that act as tank of water. So the vine didn't really suffer thanks to the water we had during the beginning of the season. But we adapt the work that we do in the vineyard. Talking about, for example, the green harvest or the de-leafing, we're going to do it earlier, more or less, depending on the weather conditions, and that is really linked to the heat that I mentioned. We do it earlier so that the skin of the grape is going to get used to it at an early stage. It's not going to burn. If we do it too late, then it could burn. So many things are done to adapt. And the Cabernet Franc is a fantastic grape variety to, even if it's a very difficult one, capricious one is a wonderful one to face against the global warming, because it brings you a lot of freshness as well. So I think we are well equipped, and we need to really pay attention to all these changes and adapt to it. And it's not impossible at all, but one has to be extremely rigorous and precise.
Yeah, definitely. It's there's a lot of things that go into it, and it seems like you guys have, like you said, you're well equipped to manage with the global warming, and especially with the high proportion of Cabernet Franc, which a lot of wineries on the right bank in Saint-Emilion, they do have Cabernet Franc, but you have quite a large percentage, which I think is a good position to be in with the global warming, like you said.
Yeah, the Cabernet Franc has another name. The local name of a Cabernet Franc, regional name, is the Boucher. Boucher, that ends with ET in the end. And my great-grandmother, Elisabeth Boucher, before she got married to my great-grandfather, had this name Boucher. And as a tribute for his beloved wife, my great-grandfather decided to plant even more Boucher Cabernet Franc here.
Smart man.
But it was not randomly. He knew where he was planted, depending on our different soils. And then my grandfather and my great uncle and my father and uncle and myself, we're all continuing, generation after generation, we're continuing to plant Cabernet Franc.
That's a fantastic story with the Boucher.
Yeah, it's really awesome. our DNA.
That makes sense. Well, I think that just about wraps us up on time. Again, we really appreciate you taking the time. I know this is the last day of harvest, so there's a lot going on. We really appreciate you taking the time to walk us through it, giving us a sneak peek, which is, really insightful, and giving us the first inside, in-depth look at 2020. It's nice to know that we have something to look forward to from the 2020 year. Absolutely.
Something cheerful. And I'm very happy for two reasons, because it's the last day of the harvest, last day of the harvest. We talked just before about the extreme weather conditions. And in 1999, we had a hailstorm 4 days before the harvest. We lost 70% of the crop. So now I'm always happy the last day, but not before. So I'm very happy because it's the end of the harvest, but also because I have the opportunity to share that with you. And as the first time that I have a live chat during the harvest through a screen. That's why it was not 100% as I would have imagined, but first time I do that, and great to share it with you.
Yes, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Good luck with the
My
last
great
few
pleasure.
hours of the
Thank you.
harvest,
Thank you very
and
much.
we hope to speak with you again soon.
Yeah, me too, with great pleasure. Hope to welcome you soon at Angelus and to be
Yes, we
back in
hope
the
so
US
too.
and to be back. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye. Bye bye.